In a place like Avonlea, where everything is quiet, orderly, and predictable, one single, very practical decision is about to go spectacularly wrong. We're going to dive into the story of a monumental mistake that changes 3 lives, and really an entire town forever. So, let's get into it.
And it all kicks off with this one simple question, asked by the town's, let's call her the unofficial watchdog, Mrs. Rachel Lynde. See, she's sitting at her window, keeping an eye on everything like she always does, when she spots something that just doesn't add up. Matthew Cuthbert, who was probably the shyest man in the world, is all dressed up in his best suit and driving the buggy. Now you have to understand, for a town like Avonlea, this is basically breaking news.
So what on earth could get Matthew Cuthbert out on the road like that? Well, it wasn't a whim, not at all. This was a plan. A plan born out of pure practicality and, maybe even a little quiet desperation. You see, the Cuthberts of Green Gables, this aging brother and sister duo, had come to a very logical conclusion. They needed some help around their farm.
Okay, so these 3 personalities are what really set the whole stage. First up, you've got Marilla. She is the definition of stern and practical. She runs that house with a conscience as rigid as a board. Then there's her brother Matthew, who is so painfully shy he will literally find a way to avoid talking to any woman. And of course, there's Mrs. Lynde, the town's moral compass and, let's be honest, chief gossip, who is about to get wind of their plan and, spoiler alert, she does not approve. And here's the plan, in all its sensible, no-nonsense glory. Let's be really clear, they are not looking for a daughter. They're essentially hiring a farmhand. They need a boy. Marilla's logic is sound. Matthew's getting older, and good hired help is impossible to find. So they need a boy who's old enough to do the chores, but still young enough that they can train him up proper. It's a transaction, really. A practical solution to a very practical problem.
But Mrs. Lynde, she sees nothing but red flags. The moment Marilla finally tells her what they're up to, Mrs. Lynde is just horrified. She immediately starts rattling off all these horror stories she's read about in the paper. The orphan boy who set fire to his house, another one that sucked eggs, and even some girl who went and poisoned a well. As far as she's concerned, the Cuthberts are basically inviting absolute chaos into their perfectly orderly lives. So, with Mrs. Lynde's terrible warnings still ringing in her ears, Marilla waits at home. Meanwhile, poor, shy Matthew Cuthbert is making that 8-mile trip to the Bright River station, probably psyching himself up for the super awkward task of picking up a strange boy he's never met. What he doesn't know, of course, is that the plan has already gone completely and utterly off the rails. And this is it. This is the moment of the great mix-up. The train pulls in, then it pulls out, and the station master just points Matthew to the only person left on the platform. This skinny, freckle-faced girl in a pretty ugly dress with 2 thick braids of fiery red hair. The boy the Cuthberts ordered? He's just not there. There's only her. Before Matthew can even begin to process this mistake, she just starts talking. And she does not stop. You immediately get a sense of who this girl is. She wasn't just sitting there waiting. She was imagining what it would be like to have to sleep in a wild cherry tree all night, all white with bloom in the moonshine. This is our first real introduction to Anne Shirley. And let me tell you, she is absolutely nothing like what Matthew or anyone in Avonlea ever expected. On that long ride home, something truly incredible starts to happen. Matthew, this man who dreads talking to women, he finds himself, actually enjoying it. He doesn't have to say a word, really. Anne does all the talking for him, filling up all that quiet space with her big ideas and the big words she needs to express them. For maybe the first time in his life, Matthew isn't being judged, he's just being talked at, but in the most wonderful and charming way possible. And right here, we see Anne's real superpower. She doesn't just look at the world, she renames it, makes it more beautiful. That lovely stretch of road covered in apple blossoms, that becomes the White Way of Delight. A regular old pond? Nope, that is now the Lake of Shining Waters. She has this incredible gift for finding romance and beauty in everything, and she's starting to make quiet, shy Matthew see it too. But of course, that magical drive has to come to an end. As they pull into the lane at Green Gables, Matthew is just filled with this sense of dread. He knows that the lovely little spell of their ride is about to be shattered by cold, hard reality. Now he has to present this talkative, imaginative girl to his very, very practical sister, Marilla. And the moment he arrives, it's just as bad as he imagined. Marilla's first words are, "Matthew Cuthbert, who's that? Where is the boy?" And just like that, in that one instant, Anne understands everything.
the home she had been dreaming about all day, the one she felt an instant connection to. It was all a mistake. Her joy just shatters, and she completely breaks down.
And right here, this is the dilemma that the whole story hinges on, laid out in 2 perfect sentences. Marilla sees the whole situation through this lens of pure usefulness. A girl can't do the farm work, so therefore she's no use to us. Simple. But Matthew, who has been completely charmed by Anne, he offers this startlingly different idea. He flips the whole question on its head. It's not about what she can do for them, it's about what they might be able to do for her.
But Marilla? Oh, she's not going to be swayed by sentiment. Not her. She is a woman of action and principle. A mistake was made, and that mistake must be corrected. So the very next day, she hitches up the horse and takes Anne to see Mrs. Spencer, the woman who arranged the whole thing, to get this mess sorted out once and for all. And pretty quickly, Marilla is presented with what seems like a perfect logical solution to her problem. There's another woman, a Mrs. Peter Blewett, who's looking for a girl to help out with her huge, unruly family. The thing is, though, Mrs. Blewett has a reputation. She's known for being hard and unkind. She's not looking for a daughter to love. She's looking for a servant to work. This is the absolute moment of truth for Marilla. She looks over at Mrs. Blewett, and then she looks back at Anne, who is just staring at her with this look of, quote, mute misery. And in that moment, something shifts inside of her. Marilla, the woman with a rigid conscience, she feels a pang from that very conscience. She realizes she just can't be responsible for handing this vibrant, sensitive child over to a life of drudgery with a woman like that. So she does something very un-Marilla-like. She makes an excuse. She tells Mrs. Blewett that they haven't quite made up their minds yet, and she takes Anne back home. Later that evening, out in the barn, she finally gives in to Matthew's unspoken wish. She says she's been thinking it over, and, well, it seems like a sort of duty. And with those simple words, Anne Shirley officially has a home at Green Gables.
But here's the thing. While the problem of Anne's homelessness is solved, a whole bunch of new problems are just getting started. Marilla is about to learn that raising a child, especially this child, is going to be a lot more complicated than she ever imagined. Anne's unconventional past and her fiery personality, well, they're about to be put on full display.
Okay, perfect example. Her very first night. Marilla is absolutely scandalized to find out that Anne has never prayed in her life. So she tells her to kneel down, thank God for her blessings, and ask for what she wants. And the result is this incredibly sincere, if totally unorthodox prayer. It shows her deep gratitude for beauty, her desperate desire for a home, and her complete and total ignorance of religious norms. It leaves Marilla utterly speechless.
About 2 weeks later, the ultimate test arrives. Mrs. Rachel Lynde finally comes over to inspect the orphan. And, true to her character, she does not hold back. She sizes Anne up from head to toe and delivers this brutally honest assessment of her looks, zeroing in on the one thing Anne is most sensitive about in the entire world, her red hair. And Anne just explodes. All of her passion, all of her insecurity, and her fierce sense of justice just comes pouring out in this torrent of absolute fury. She stamps her foot and screams at Mrs. Lynde, telling her exactly what she thinks of her. It is a display of temper that leaves both Mrs. Lynde and Marilla completely and utterly horrified. I mean, Avonlea has never seen anything like it. So, this is where we leave them for now. The great Green Gables mistake has been resolved, and a lonely orphan finally has a home. But as that final explosive showdown shows, her real journey has only just begun. The question now isn't just about whether Anne can learn to fit into the rigid, proper world of Avonlea, but maybe, more importantly, whether Avonlea can ever learn to make room for the one and only Anne of Green Gables.